Cheers.
Plain wine.
I'd be curious how this tastes with different sorts of wine.
Yes.
To me, this is, I'm not sure what I was expecting. Maybe a little tart.
Did you get some of the pumpkin pie spice
I'm not
as
sure.
well? Because I think that it mellows it nicely.
I just got a little. That's interesting. I might finish that later. Right, and I believe you even went to Egypt and went to all the places that she traveled.
I did that. After I did my academic research, I went to all the places that I could access that she had been and tried to walk in her footsteps and really absorb the, the atmosphere and the surroundings and, see as much of the rubble.
Right. Now, I'm kind of curious. When I was doing my research, my books are set in the time of Robert the Bruce, the years from Battle of Bannockburn in 1314 up to about 1319. And one of the things I learned was that even going to a place, because I did the same thing, I went to Scotland, I went to what little they know of where the Battle of Bannockburn was. And then I came across a book saying, but what you see today is not necessarily what they saw. And I'm kind of curious if you ran into anything like that, where what you're seeing today is not what she would have seen, because the land changes, the dampness, the waterways,
even the
whatever.
level of the earth, really.
Right. Yeah. Have you run into any of that?
Well, I knew that I wasn't seeing exactly what she saw, but in some of the ancient places, like I went to the ancient city of Ephesus, which is in Turkey, and so marvelous. And, I just literally walked the pathway that she and Mark Antony walked when they deboarded their ship and went into the city. And, it was extremely exciting. And the ancient city is still there. It's still really well preserved. So in moments like that, I just felt these.
It's incredible. There is a site in Scotland where a whole fleet of ships was launched, I believe, for the Battle of Jura. And I know how you feel, because when I stood there after having read about it so much, it was like I could almost just see this whole fleet of ships. So I bet that's an incredible thrill.
It's thrilling. I mean, whereas on the other hand, ancient Alexandria is now in the Bay of Alexandria. Cleopatra's city is in the Bay. It's from earthquakes and erosion, and it's a sunken city. And now Alexandria pretty much looks like Miami 1960. It's a very there wasn't much left, but what I learned mostly from talking to Egyptian scholars there and going to the museums is I understood that Cleopatra's family were outsiders. They were Greeks and they were running Egypt. And I didn't quite get that sense from my graduate studies, but as soon as I went to Egypt, I started figuring that out, and that enriched the book tremendously.
I think that's so important. What I learned was that you really almost do need to go to where your book is set, unless it's set on the moon or something like that. That could be a little cost prohibitive. But you don't even know what you don't know. You don't know what questions to ask. Like, okay, it's a stupid little thing or really little thing. But in Scotland, I found out about the midges. Nobody talks about the midges. And it sounds like you got the same experience where it's like, wow, no amount of study online or even a literal graduate degree.
Exactly.
These things.
Exactly. Yeah, so, I always think people who don't go to where they're writing about are cheating somehow,
I was curious, all these marriages, what did they have, like 19 husbands between them? And Magda ended up marrying, what was it, her sister Ava's former husband? Did I get that right?
Zsa former husband.
Zsa former husband. And as I was reading that, my first thought was Sophie's Choice, and for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with the movie, Sophie is this odd woman who lives upstairs, in the upstairs apartment. And bit by bit, the American who wonders about this really weird woman, learns the story that she was in a concentration camp, and the guard just decided to be nasty that day and said, I'm going to kill one of your children, and either you pick which one survives or I'll kill them both. And at the last second, she shouts, take the little girl. And she lives with this guilt, and I did kind of wonder first, all these marriages, 19 husbands between 3 women, is this a trauma from the war? But then I read more about their mother and how she was always telling them, you're going to marry kings. Was it maybe that, they were raised to believe that nobody was really quite good enough for them except a literal king? What do you think is the answer?
Well, I think it's different for every sister. The mother and her demands on them to marry rich and, be famous were certainly a factor. But
Was she a mommy dearest type of a mother, or?
She was even more cunning than that, because
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
She made the girls really work for her love. And she was very controlling. She was a huge influence in their lives. I can't really explain why they, Zsa was always in search of true love. Well, at first they were all in search of somebody who would get them out of Nazi occupied Europe. But Zsa really loved several of her husbands and could never, I think she was always fighting she was so charismatic and so famous, and she would marry somebody and then she would explode on the scene as either a star or a glamour icon or whatever. And it would really interfere with the marriage.
This opening paragraph, are you familiar with the rape of Nanking?
I mean,
No?
I'm familiar with what happened, but
Okay. There's a movie sort of based on it called Flowers of War. And reading this scene just reminded me of the brutality, of the viciousness, just for the sake of being vicious.
Yeah.
How do you dig into a story like this and explain for yourself, how does such evil come to be in the world? What makes?
I really don't know. I spent a lot of time in Germany and I loved it. And and this was in recent years, and I kept looking for something in Germans that in their character that would give a hint of how these people could have done this. And I couldn't find it. I could not find it. There's nothing about Germans that would make them prone to do this. And so I had to accept that somehow this evil is in all of us. We don't all express it. But I think if you take we've seen it now in our own culture. If you demonize people enough, you get the mob on the bandwagon, right?
Right. And I was just thinking that as you were talking, that there's a list that's been going around of the 10 steps toward genocide. And that's a major step, is that you dehumanize. And so I think number one, the Germans were told over and over and over for years on end that the Jewish people are, insert all these evil things. And I think there were also some who just felt like, I'm one person, even if they knew it was wrong, they didn't know what to do to stop it.
Right.
And I think, I wish that more people realize that we're all capable of being what the German people were in the 1930s and 40s. And, you know, too many of us are like, nope, I'm better than that. Well, you know what? We're not, because we're all susceptible to manipulation, to brainwashing, to being told over and over that somebody is bad.
I really wonder, you know, having spent a lot of time in this era, you know, and having studied a lot of war, you know, I really wonder what if I were in these circumstances, would I be a hero, or would I be somebody who was just going to do something to preserve myself and my family?
Right, right.
You know?
And I wish that people today would not be so sure that they're the heroes, because it's only by asking that question that we have any hope at all of maybe being the hero, to think about it and, you know, look that question in the face and ask, who are we really?